Hey, are boundaries godly? This idea that we live a Christian life and we're called to sacrifice our lives for others, how does that pair with the idea that we are supposed to have boundaries that protect our relationships? In this episode of Between Sundays, we talk about how boundaries are actually meant to keep people in our lives, not to keep them out of our lives. So let's dive in.
Hey, do you remember being a kid, like in the car with other people, and like you'd have the imaginary boundary?
Oh, yeah.
You have those?
I like to cross those.
You like to cross
Yeah.
them? So you were the one like sticking your finger over the edge, making the other ones mad?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
My little brother would get really ticked at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would set things in the seat and like, that's
Oh.
your side. This is my side. Don't cross.
Yeah.
Don't cross the boundary.
But isn't it just fun to
That was probably me. I don't really remember that much. That was probably me. But I'm also the kid that threw a shirt and a curling iron out the window.
why?
My brother told me to.
Oh my gosh.
I don't-
Okay, so-
we're on vacation and like we're coming back from Florida. I'm just like, poof, throwing it out the window.
Yeah, no, I feel like I would have been your brother. I'm the natural instigator.
Uh-huh.
Just like how
Yeah.
far can I push you until you just break?
Yeah. That does sound like you a lot, actually.
Actually, doesn't it though?
So I was talking to my wife the other day. I saw a meme that was like, it said something along the lines of, if you needed something illegal done, which kid would you ask and why would it be your second?
Yeah.
Yeah, is
For
that true
sure.
for you?
I mean, I'm the oldest,
Uh-huh.
but that is true for me as the oldest. It is true for my second. I mean, they're like 4 and 7 right now, but I can tell you as soon as they grow up, I know the one that I will call for illegal things that need to be done. And it will
Okay.
be my youngest.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think it's true for us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My son's a rule follower. Well, they're all kind of rule followers. I think it's my youngest.
Mm.
I think we asked JL, she'd go, yep, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's break
Yeah.
the law. I think growing up, it was probably my brother. Now it would probably be me.
Okay.
Between the two of us. I don't know why we're talking about this, but it's just like, how are we like horrible kids growing up? Yeah.
How are we going to break the boundaries of the people around us? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's good transition.
Mhm.
I like
Yeah,
that.
you're
Because
welcome.
we're talking about boundaries today.
We
And
are.
our boundaries loving.
Yeah. So frankly, I mean, we've talked about this just between the two of us before. Boundaries are something that I have traditionally struggled with. Mostly just setting boundaries with other people because of this idea that I grew up for the most part in the church, and it was drilled into me that your life is meant to be poured out for others.
Yeah.
And so how do you reconcile that idea with having boundaries with others?
Mm-hmm.
So teach me.
The sacrificial part of our faith. And how do we balance that? Your foot is encroaching on my boundaries. I'm kidding. No. I think
cross my legs this way.
It is hard. I actually, having boundaries is one of the most loving things that we can do.
Yeah.
Because a boundary is not meant to keep you out of my life. The boundary is meant to keep you in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of boundaries as, think about your home. So there are certain spaces. You're a friend. If you came to our house, we would welcome you into our home, hang out in our living room, kitchen, all that stuff. I think my wife invited you over to use the hot tub once.
Yeah, she did. She also made me those, was it cheesy chicken enchiladas? Some kind of enchilada thing that was like, I'm coming back.
Right. Yeah. So you, because you're a friend, you have access to all that. You don't come into our bedroom.
Right. No.
Right. There are some people who we wouldn't even invite into our home. I just don't know them. UPS drivers come to our porch. They don't come into my home.
You can leave that package right
You
there.
leave that right there. The garbage man, you're at the edge of the property at the street. That's what, you don't need to come onto my property. You don't need to do that. We understand this, when it comes to our home, there are certain people that have certain access.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I don't love the garbage guy.
Yeah.
You're not coming into my home. And maybe if I knew you, we would invite you, but we're not to that point in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Those boundaries are the same in our lives, in our relationships. Like there are some relationships that are close. And I'll invite you into my proverbial living room. I'm not going to invite everyone into my proverbial living room, right? I'm not going to invite them into that kind of relationship. The struggle sometimes, I think, is that we have to be welcoming of all people. No, actually not to that extent. You don't. So you think of it as concentric circles.
Mm-hmm.
You have your core at the middle. You actually, Tyler could probably pull this up. There's probably diagrams of this all over the place online. At the core, you've got your 3 or 4 people that are your closest people. So your spouse would be on there. Maybe your kids, or you probably have a best friend. Your parents might be in there. They might be at the next circle,
right.
actually. So there you go. So as it goes out and the further out it gets, the more distant the relationship is, if you will. So you're going to invite certain people into those intimate spaces in your life. That's why I made the comment. The person that I invite into my bedroom is my wife. My kids can come in. Like those are the people.
Right.
I will not invite anyone else into my bedroom,
right,
unless it's a plumber coming to fix our bathroom or something happen. Yeah. So the same is true with the intimate spaces of our life. Like you don't all have access to that.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have access to that, because it's actually damaging to my relationship with my wife
Mm-hmm.
if I let other people into that space. So we have to understand that our relationships are different.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those people will be at the core. Some of them go to the next level out, and then the next level and the next level, these concentric circles.
You said something at the beginning. You said boundaries are meant to keep people in our lives, not to keep them out of our
Mm-hmm.
lives. So do you have an example of a time when a boundary helped keep someone in your life?
I think as a pastor, there's a million of them,
Mhm.
right? Because, at 242, we have thousands of people that call 242 home. You have some level of relationship with so many of them,
Mhm.
right? And I can think of a number of times throughout ministry, not just here at 242, that people have wanted to have a closer relationship with me than they were ever going to have. Like they just wanted access to the pastor, or I've had people actually come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to be your accountability partner." Nope.
Do you say it like that?
Yeah. I was like, you don't get to make that choice. I make that choice of who enters into that level of relationship
Right.
with me. The fact that you want to do it scares me. It really does. It's a little terrifying.
You're a little too eager.
When you volunteer for that. So I think setting those boundaries of expectations in ministry is a constant battle
Mm-hmm.
of like, what level of relationship are we going to have? Because there are some people that want more
Yeah.
than they should actually have. And I think it's important. You got to kind of set those up front, So I'll think of a very clear boundary, obvious one that we have in our office is that I have a set of blinds on my door. I have a glass door, set of blinds on it, because there's sometimes I just need to work,
Right.
and I need to not be bothered. And it's usually a good signal. I'm busy. If someone comes into my office to meet with me, I will roll that blind up,
Right.
because it's a boundary. Like you and I, Maggie, should not be in a room together that other people can't see in.
Right.
Like we should not have that level of intimacy.
Right.
So I will roll that thing up so people can see it. That's a boundary.
Yeah.
And that's important because I want to have a relationship with you. I want
Mhm.
to like be connected, be not just friends,
Protect
but
that
we're
friendship,
coworkers.
yep.
Absolutely. And we protect that by creating a boundary.
Right.
And the same is true we've seen people debate this all the time. Like if we were going to go to a meeting, we will drive separate. Like you and I are not going to get a car by ourselves. If there's a third person, we will.
Yeah.
But not you and I together, not by ourselves. We
Yeah.
won't. And it's not that I don't trust you.
Right.
It's not that I don't trust
Right.
me. We're just not going to do it. We've set a clear boundary in order to maintain and keep a healthy relationship between not just us, but everyone else as
Right.
well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a new boundary that I've set recently. So a lot of my job deals with the online space. And so I have to be
Mhm.
very present, social media, digital spaces, specifically for church. And because of that, people will send me friend requests on Facebook,
Yeah.
especially from our church.
Mhm.
And I get a lot of friend requests from people that I don't know and have never talked to, but they might go to our church. So one of my boundaries, and I know that this could cause hurt feelings, but so I'll just say it openly for everyone to know. I will not I will not accept a friend request from someone unless I've met them in person. Because otherwise, Facebook is where I post pictures and stories of my kids and personal things that in order to honor my family and the other people's stories that are intertwined with mine. It's not that those people are untrustworthy. I just don't know them.
Yeah.
And so it's a boundary to protect that pastoral relationship, even with the people that we shepherd week in and week out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think family is a big one.
Mm.
Like what are those boundaries you have for family members?
Mm-hmm.
Because your family, right? So not only do I have my immediate family with my wife and kids, I have my parents, her parents, my brother, her brother and sister. All those are all family members. And it's an important part of our family, but they are not the center circle.
Right.
My wife and my kids are the center circle. And so
Preach.
exactly, this is biblical, actually. And so, but the next circle, they're in that next circle. So it's setting those boundaries of, hey, we operate as a family unit, And there are some things you don't get access to. So my wife and I, we don't talk about our sex life with people. Like I don't go talk to guys about it. She doesn't talk to women about it because that's us. And that's letting you come into an intimate part of our relationship that you don't belong there. And so that's one of our boundaries. We had to set this early on. We got married in Southern California. Her family's awesome people. We come from families that function differently. And so there were different expectations on each side. And for me, it's like I need to know that I have time with just my family. So when we go out to visit, like we're intentional, and I think we've been clear about this. Now we weren't great early on. It's like, hey, we're going to come out and visit, but we're also going to take a day. We're going to the beach together. Just us, just our family. At first, I think because we weren't clear about that boundary, there were some hurt feelings. And it's like, it's not that I don't want to be around you. It's just like we're a core and we're going to go enjoy the beach together. So there, Tyler pulled that up. So the center circle is like yourself. And the next circle is intimate relationships. Then you've got family. Then as you keep going out, you got friends, acquaintances, and then strangers. That yellow is really hard to see. And then the strangers. And it's just figuring out like who's in what circle.
Right.
And where are they allowed to be. And I think family is one of the hardest ones to do.
I love what you just said too about that specific boundary with your in-laws, because something that God has really walked me through is this idea that boundaries that aren't communicated aren't boundaries.
Correct.
One of the ways that we can have boundaries and still be people who serve and pour out for others is communicating those boundaries, not just expecting people to like pick up on things that we want that we haven't said. Because that creates hurt feelings, like you said, dynamics that can become toxic and it's like weird back and forth. And so, I know we're going to get into this in future episodes, but that dives into maybe our discomfort with conflict a little bit as well. Like the inability to set boundaries. Frankly, for me, in the past, I've blamed on a desire to pour out for others when really it was that I didn't want to have conflict.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think even people who enjoy conflict. Look, we've said it before. You and I are both Enneagram 8s. We actually like it. We like debate. We like conflict.
Conflict
we're not
is
scared
the language of intimacy for me.
We're not scared of it. However, we are scared of harming relationships.
Right.
And because of that, one of the things that I think everyone universally at some level is afraid of is hard conversations with people they really care about.
Yeah.
So if someone comes up to me and, like, again, some random person I've never met before says, hey, I want to be your accountability partner, it's really easy for me to say, no, it's not going to happen. Let me tell you why it's not going to happen. If someone I'm close to says, hey, I want to be your accountability partner.
Like, how do I tell you no?
How do I tell you no? I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
But I need to make sure you know which circle you're in.
Right.
And I think you think you're in a different circle, but we're not sure how to engage in that. So often what we do is we fudge the boundaries. Like we have that circle, but there's a dip on that circle because we let that one person come in to a space that they really shouldn't be in. And now then we're in trouble.
Right.
Because we've opened a door to a space you shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
Now you're in my kitchen and you aren't someone who should be in my kitchen.
Yeah. And I think too, like this idea that we only set boundaries when something bad has happened.
Right.
Is false.
Yeah.
It's a false narrative. Because you and I have had conversations where like we'll enter into a meeting and you'll say at the front of the meeting, okay, I'm going to set some boundaries for this conversation. And it's not that like anything bad, like I haven't done anything wrong. Nothing bad has happened. You're just setting the boundaries of like, here's how this conversation probably needs to operate because of the nature of what we're talking about. And so that's been helpful, I think, for me to learn from you that boundaries aren't punitive. They're guardrails for healthy Christian interpersonal dynamic, or just interpersonal dynamics, period, but especially as the body of Christ.
Yeah. I just did that with you the other day.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We said, hey, like you had something you want to talk to me about. I didn't know what it was. And from the sounds of it, it could have been anything.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, if it's this, or this, I'm happy to have a coaching conversation with you.
Yeah.
If it's something I absolutely need to know as a lead pastor, you can tell me. But if it's about this over here, we're not talking about it.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's not about that.
Yeah.
I need you to.
Very good. But we set the boundary.
Yeah.
Because now I don't want to be in a situation where it's like, oh, great. Now we just had a conversation that you and I shouldn't have had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I got to backtrack out of this, but I can't unknow what I know.
Right.
what's been said.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was a preemptive boundary to like safeguard the body of Christ, not like something that I got in trouble for that I did in the moment. So I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah. So let's talk about this in reverse.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries. I mean, I think we often think about setting boundaries to keep people in the circle that they belong, to keep them from going too far into the center. We also set boundaries to keep people from going too far away from the center. So we think about our spouse or our kids. There are certain boundaries and expectations. So I'll say, and maybe it's stretching the definition of the word boundary, but we eat dinner together as a family at the table. We don't set the table and get all fancy. Like we get our food in the kitchen and we sit down as a family. It's a boundary. It's an expectation, but it's a boundary.
Right.
This is one of the things it means to be on the inner circle. You sit at this table and we eat together. And we joke together, we laugh together, we do things together. It is what it is. We go on vacations together. Like you will go and you will enjoy it.
You will enjoy it. A boundary.
Like it. But there's certain things. And so even with marriage, so there's certain like things that I need to communicate clearly and vulnerably with my wife in order to make sure that we're in that center circle together. Rather than pushing her away. And I think so many times intimate relationships, we tend to push people to outside circles and we don't really realize it, but we haven't been intentional about setting the boundary to keep them in rather than to keep them out.
That's good. A boundary that made me think of that I've set recently with my kids and the adults in their life to keep my kids in the inner circle is, and this is, I'm sure, a thing that every parent would say to their kids. I've just beat it home verbally a lot more recently is we do not keep secrets from mommy. We don't keep, you can have surprises for mommy. And so explaining the difference between a secret and a surprise and really driving home with the other adults that are consistent in their lives. Do not ever ask my child to keep a secret from me. If I found out that you asked my child to keep a secret from me, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, like repeating it to my kids too, because they're young enough that like my oldest specifically is like Miss Social Butterfly.
Yes, she is.
And she's also a people pleaser naturally. Yeah. And so if someone she loves asks her to keep a secret, she's going to want to do it.
Yeah.
And so having that boundary to make sure that those relationships, because my two kids are my inner circle right now, and we ain't keeping secrets in this house.
Yeah. And that's the reality of the boundaries. And I think that's part of the tension that you brought up earlier, is that the boundaries make us protect people differently. And we will fight tooth and nail for the people at our core. I'll fight also for the family. I'll fight from friends, but I'm fighting less now because it's not my responsibility to fight the same way for a friend as I fight for my daughter.
For sure.
Right. So I think some of the tension is in Scripture, we're called to love everyone, be sacrificial, give, all those things. Like sometimes it gets hard when we're talking about a stranger who deserves to be loved the way that Jesus loves, but they're on that outside circle. And what does it mean? How do I balance this? And how do I open myself up in an appropriate way to help them that is in line with Scripture, but also maintains boundaries? I think that's where some of the tension comes in.
Yeah. And listening to the Spirit, I think, is a huge part of that too. We haven't talked much about that in the podcast so far, but the Spirit will prod you to maybe sacrifice a little more than you would have in the moment for a stranger. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Not saying you'd be like, come live in my house with me and sleep at the foot of my bed. But
you've seen people do things sometimes. And part of that boundary conversation is if you are married or other people, like even your kids, like you have to consider their boundaries too. Right. So you wouldn't invite a stranger to come live in your home, not just for your safety, but you have kids to protect. So it's not happening. I've got a responsibility for those inner circle people. Yeah. Talk about a time that that you have seen the lack of boundaries like damage a relationship.
Really, part of the boundaries that I've set on this podcast is that I'm not going to talk in detail about all the things that have happened to me over the last year because it's not just my story. There are so many other people's stories. I mean, your story is wrapped up in my story, Tony. So that's even part of it. And so there have been probably a handful of times in my life where my story was shared without my permission. And that's a boundary for me. I am trust is one of my biggest values in relationships, in any relationship. And that trust needs to be stronger the further in for the intimacy circles that you get with me. But if trust is broken, I have a really hard time rebuilding that. And specifically when it comes to letting me use my voice for my own story.
Well, welcome to being an 8.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. I mean,
so can I share a little bit? I'm not going to share your story, but how we've kind of set boundaries to protect you.
For sure.
So as everything's going on, obviously, like through it all, I've been just so humbled by the spirit of the people at 242 who just wanted to love you and care for you. The problem is you got a couple thousand people wanting to love you and care for you. It's too much. Yeah. Like every week somebody would ask me like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And the answer was like nothing. Like the actual answer is you can pray, but nothing. Because it will be overwhelming for her. So we had to, this is really hard because they wanted to show the love of Jesus to you and your family. And we had to say, I actually need you to not do that.
Yeah.
Because we had people that were coming alongside you. We were in communication with you because you took some time off work, and during all that, like everybody wanted to pour out on you. But I was like, we can't let that happen. So it felt weird for us to be like, no, we actually need you to not show the love of Jesus the way that you want to, because it's actually in her best interest. Because we're setting a boundary to protect her. That was a weird tension to try to explain to. Most people understood completely when you explained it to them, but it was hard to tell people I just want to love the way that Jesus tells me to love. And now you're telling me I can't love.
Right. Well, and I think personally, this is one thing I will share. The reason why that was so important and powerful and impactful for me, I felt protected by you guys for doing that. Because what people don't know is that because it was such a highly publicized event, there were people just like leaving stuff on my porch that I didn't know. And that when you're already like in a bunch of different news articles is very unsettling. And so it was helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Unsettling is an understatement. And so it was helpful to have you guys like running point for me to say, if you want to share something with her, go through this one funnel and we will communicate it when she's ready to receive it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so important. Dr. Henry Cloud wrote a book on boundaries. Actually, Tyler, can you pull up how many different versions of that? Like, I'm sure on his website, there's a bunch of books. He's got so many different versions of this book. His book on boundaries is phenomenal. Sold so many copies. But he's turned that into, I think there's boundaries for kids. There's boundaries
in marriage.
In marriage, all kinds of stuff. So if that's a book or some information you're looking for, Dr. Henry Cloud, I'm sure you can find it on Amazon or whatever. Tyler's pulling that stuff up now. All kinds of versions. So if you're struggling with boundaries somewhere, be a great resource to look at as he talks about how to set those boundaries. Updated and expanded version. Even better than it was before. Look at that. So $13 on Amazon right now. I don't know if that's true. It's just what popped up. So, boundaries, I think are, it's an art that has to be practiced, and you have to stay up on it because it's easy to let those boundaries slip. And I've had a couple relationships that because of not having the appropriate boundaries, they affected other relationships that I've had in my life. And so then what happens, this is what sometimes happens. If you've got, we'll say the core people are affected because you let people from a friend circle get too close. And now you have to change that. Well, those people that used to be in the friend circle may even have to be further out now because now it's damaged a different relationship. So it's so important to set the boundaries early.
So
often.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, when someone crosses your boundary, how do you respond to that in a way that reflects following Jesus between Sundays?
Yeah.
Because I know, I mean, we can talk about how you'd react to it, but.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know. It's probably, if I'm honest with you, it's probably one of the things I probably struggle less setting the boundary than I do adjusting the boundary.
And reinforcing it.
Yeah, reinforcing it. So it's usually just over time, just kind of forcing the relationship back to where it was supposed to be. What I ought to do is just sit down and have a conversation. Hey, we like this. This isn't where I want the boundary to be set. The reason the boundaries get off is because one person wants something the other person doesn't want. Like there's a different levels, and somebody tries to push a relationship into friend when you were acquaintances, and that's just is what it is.
Right.
And you have to kind of begin to reset those. That's when feelings start getting hurt. So again, I go back, set them early, set them often, reiterate them, and stay true to them.
Mm-hmm.
But you, she ghosts them. Like,
no, I mean, I have a punching bag in my office.
It's just
so
true.
let's just, yeah, I think it goes back to that trust thing for me. Frankly, I don't know if this is the right or wrong thing to do, but this is what I do. If you can't honor my boundary in this circle, then you get pushed back a circle. Because if you've shown me that you can't be trusted with this much, then you're not going to be trusted with more intimacy. If you can't be trusted
biblical.
with I know. I did that on purpose. Thanks. So then the next boundary does kind of become punitive. It becomes like a consequence because you couldn't honor the boundary that was just to safeguard it.
It'll push you further away. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, we set our boundaries. Other people don't set our boundaries for us.
Right.
And we don't get to set the boundaries for other people. So just because I want to be your friend and you want us to be acquaintances doesn't mean I get to be your friend.
Right.
You choose that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's whoever is determining the outermost ring is the one that gets to make the call. That's the relationship that it is. If I want us to be acquaintances, you want friends, tough. We're acquaintances.
And I will say this isn't necessarily a boundary, but it is a conversation that I've had with many people as I've set boundaries in relationships with them, that if they begin to express displeasure with the boundary over and over again, even if they're not crossing the boundary, but they're expressing displeasure to try to get me to move it, you're going to move back some circles because I ain't got time, homie.
Right. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing to be in one circle or the other.
Right.
It just is. And I don't know when my wife was going through the Enneagram stuff and learning about that, and she had me listen to the 8s because she was pretty sure I was an 8, and I was like, that's me. And when I was listening to that podcast, I think it was Annie F. Downs did her Ennea Summer podcast. I think, she was talking to 8s, and they made a comment that an 8 can count the number of friends, like close friends, that they have in their lifetime on
one hand.
They said 2 hands, and they're like, oh no, it's
one hand for sure.
And I started counting. Sure enough, like I still have room. There's still
I got fingers left.
Yeah, there's fingers left on my one hand. But that's just our reality, right? So other people are wired differently. They may have 30 close friends. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay because very few people ever make it to that core.
Right.
Ever make it there. And it's okay if you're not there. And so you don't need to feel like lesser than or unimportant just because like you are an acquaintance in my life. It's fine. Or you're a friend. It's fine. Like those aren't bad things.
So there's this book by Jenny Allen called Find Your People. And in the book, she talks about how we actually weren't made to have 27 best friends.
Oh, no.
The way God designed us, we actually were designed to have like a smaller inner circle. And so how do you find those people? And then once you find them, how do you protect those relationships? And then the circles that go out, how do you protect all of those too? Because they're just as valuable as the ones who are in the inner circle as well.
So Jenny Allen, Find Your People.
Find Your People.
Building deep community in a lonely world. Okay. Good book?
It is.
Good book. Okay. Well, Jesus models this, right? He had his inner 3.
Yeah.
And the 12. Had the crowd. Then he had all those who, like priests, Pharisees, all those.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, even you look at Jesus' relationships, Jesus understood this. And the world change that took place because of the boundaries that Jesus set in place. And my guess is at some point in time, there was a boundary conversation that happened about like, hey, why are those three always with you? Well,
Right.
let me talk to you about
Right.
that. And we may not have access to that
Play by play,
conversation, but my guess it was there. My guess
sure.
is that happened. Last 10% on setting boundaries.
I don't know if I have a last 10% this time.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those conversations that I'm still learning how to do well.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm doing more listening than I am speaking with this.
Yeah. It's hard because there's so many relationships that we have, regardless of which of those concentric circles they're in.
Right.
So many relationships, and we do care about them all deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the tension, that we do love people like Jesus does. I love the guy who picks up our garbage. I don't know him.
Yeah.
But I love him the way Jesus does. Same for the guy that delivers something to my porch. Same thing for a friend who drops something off, who gets to come into my entryway. Small group, friends that come over and hang out.
Yeah.
My wife and my kids. I love all of them.
Mm-hmm.
How that is modeled through our boundaries is different for each of them. It doesn't mean we don't love them.
Yeah.
And I think for my 10%, it's like, and it's so important to set your boundaries early and set them up front, because it's so much easier to have that conversation than the conversation of trying to readjust them when you've let someone get to a point, either too close to the center or too far away from the center, and then try to readjust those and fix those relationships. So set them soon, set them quick, set them early, set them often.
Preach.
And stick to them.
Yep.
Just like Jesus did.
Just like Jesus did.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.